I still read Joel. I still read Joel. Okay, all right. That's why you You're about to knock you, Phil. I like the one. Takes 3 years off. I didn't take that many years off. Yeah, I don't get a lot of things. But you know what? I did have some this was absolutely No, this was simply
Appreciate everybody coming. We'll get started here. When we're done here, we'll move over to the cruise building, and that's where the players will be available. And then for the TV folks that request a one-on-one, Coach Muschamp will bring him around to your spot over there as well. So with that, Coach Muschamp.
Well, we're excited to get started. Really can't wait to get on the field tomorrow and quit talking to you guys, no offense. But actually ready to coach a little ball. That's what you get hired to do. But felt like we had a pretty good summer. I mean, we'll see how Jeff Dillman and staff do an outstanding job. And the guys seem to be in pretty good shape and real good spirits. We started about 15 minutes early with our team meeting today. Coach Finks was not there, so we started without him. And then Chance Miller, our compliance guy, he wasn't there either. So our team started early. They were early. Our administrators, they weren't there on time. But got a lot of youth and inexperience on this team, as I've been said in multiple situations before, especially on offense. But the work ethic and the mind of our guys have been really pleased with, and how they've responded to this staff and responded to the things that we're trying to do. We're really pleased with that. The goal really is September 1st to be fresh, fast, and physical. And we're going to need to be that way. We need to have a physical camp. With that being said, we need to stay healthy. And there's a fine line there as a coach as far as, are you having enough contact to be ready for the opener and be fresh, be fast, be physical, but still have enough guys healthy to be able to do that. And that's something we need to be able to manage in camp, because we're paper thin in some areas, as we know. As far as the injury update, obviously Sky Moore and Michael Skarnecki are out for the year. I think that we've detailed those situations. Kyle Markway, I think, will be cleared in about 2 weeks. We put a screw in his foot in the spring, and we felt like about mid-August he would be ready to go, and he's right on time, and he looks good. Casey Crosby had some chest issues, but he's going to be fine. He'll be cleared for Friday. He'll miss the first couple days, and he'll be ready to go. We are just monitoring some situations there. Some limited guys. Stephon Taylor had labrum surgery in March. So you may not see him totally active in some of the contact, but he has been cleared for contact. We're just going to have to monitor him a little bit. Evan Henson had meniscus tear this summer. He's cleared. He's going to be practicing. We may limit some reps on him. He's a little bit of a pitch count as far as snaps and such. And Alan Knott is still coming off the hand injury there, so he'll be a little bit limited at practice as well, so he won't be as active as maybe some other guys. The first 4 practices will be split squad. Meaning our older guys will go in the morning at 8 o'clock. Everybody will be there, but they will practice the first part of an hour and a half or so of practice. Our young guys will be able to watch practice, to be able to see the tempo of practice, the verbiage, the communication, all the things that a young player in the transition from high school to college or college to pro, the thing you struggle most with is the tempo of practice and how fast the game moves. It's a more complicated game. It's a faster game. So those guys, for the most part, the younger guys will be able to watch that. It's the same script. It's the same practice when they start practicing. Midway through, we'll have the entire team out there practicing special teams, and then the older guys will be done when we get finished with that, and the younger guys will practice the rest. We'll do that for 4 days, but it enables you to have it a little bit more of a slower tempo for a younger player, to teach him better, for them to learn better. You can install faster because you're not in the middle of a practice trying to explain something to a young player when you know the older player already has an idea of what we're trying to do. So I think it's a much better teaching opportunity, and we're going to rely on a bunch of young guys to play. So we're going to do it for 4 days. I've usually only done it for the first 2, but I've decided to do it 4 days going into this camp because of the youth and the guys that we're going to need to be able to play for us. Still no update on Akeem Cooperwood. I'm sure when that will be resolved, he's still working through a class issue there. I also want to announce the hiring of Reverend Charles Jackson Jr. For a character counselor, a life coach, a spiritual development department of our football program. Really pleased to be able to have him on board. From Columbia, was a student athlete at South Carolina State, has been in the shoes of what our guys go through. It was kind of the position I wanted to hire Marcus Lattimore for. It took a little longer than I thought it would, but it's not about finding a guy, it's about finding the right guy. And we found the right guy. In my multiple meetings with him and his vision of affecting young people in a positive way, I'm really, really excited about it. He pastors Brooklyn Baptist Church and New Laurel Street Baptist Church as well. So we're really excited about him, and I'll open it up for any of your questions.
Raise your hand, get a microphone to you. First question here.
Will, is there a set date through fall camp where you want to have a starting quarterback named?
David, not really. I think that at the end of the day, whether we play 1 or 2 or 3, we're going to do what we need to do to be successful. Lorenzo will still be in that conversation, and he's taking more reps at receiver going into camp, but we still need to have a role for him at quarterback for some of the run game things that we need to be able to create, depending on who our starter is at quarterback. But I don't have a set, a date in mind. Certainly, would you like to name a starter? Yeah, sure. But at the end of the day, we're going to do what it takes to win games. Our guys understand that everything's being evaluated. The meeting room, the practice field, every throw, every decision. So our guys understand that.
I know you use your charity as the Brooklyn Lakewood Empowerment Center the other day, and you mentioned Reverend Jackson is there. How important was it to get somebody in that role that knows the community as well as he does as well?
Well, I think so. Again, we've, guys from the state of South Carolina, I've talked about taking care of our state first, and we'll start with our community. And that's something that's important to Carol and I from our platform, being the head coach of University of South Carolina, is positively affecting our community, number one, and kids, number two. And certainly that's the vision that Reverend Jackson and his father have as well.
Go to the back, Mike.
Well, how do you approach last year's 3-9 season? Do you use it as motivation for
No, we've
this team?
moved on. It's a new football team this year. Obviously, as a competitor, when you don't have things, you don't get the results you want, you got to go back. And that's one thing I've asked our players is it's like the guy that has the heart attack, and he has surgery. His wife's taking him home, and he pulls over and says, "Let me get a pack of cigarettes and a bottle of liquor." He's probably going to have a heart attack again. So if you continue to do the same things, you're going to get the same results. So we needed to change some things, which I feel like we have. I feel like our players have really bought into what we're trying to do, and I've been really pleased with that. So it's not really as far as, that part of it. That's where we are, though. That's what our record is, and you are what your record is. So our guys understand that, but it's more about, motivating each other, taking care of each other, a new football team here at South Carolina.
Let's go to the right. Teddy, around the right.
Coach, in this day and age, how much hitting, if any at all, do you do in the fall, or does that depend on how much experience your team has?
Well, I think the physicality, and you can't talk about it. A lot of coaches talk about being physical. Well, we're going to be about it. You're going to see our practice. They're going to be a physical practice. Now, we don't go to the ground. A lot of these new practice suggestions we've been doing for a long, long time. We probably only have 2 scrimmages where we take people to the ground in fall camp. You can still have great physicality at practice and not take anybody to the ground. But, and part of my talk tonight with our team is about how we practice. You got to take care of each other. You can still compete and have great physicality at practice and be a great physical edge for our football team and not get anybody hurt, because normally when guys get hurt is when they're on the ground. So being able to practice the right way is really important, and our guys will understand that. And I thought in spring did a really good job.
Go to the middle of the room, Matt.
How important is defensive line depth in this conference? Do you feel like you can never have too many good defensive linemen?
Well, again, if a big guy runs out of gas, he's done. We don't ever want our big guys to play over 6 to 8 snaps in a row. Unfortunately, with tempo nowadays, you can't always sub to get guys out of the game. But you always got to have a good plan to have a healthy rotation, especially early in the year, as hot as it gets. And you never can have enough. One of the most exerting things as a player is pass rush. And when a guy pass rushes over and over again, he really, really gets spent. So you've got to have a good plan going in, and you never have enough guys up front.
Will, 2 questions. The freshmen who were here in the spring under that split squad concept, are they considered newcomers, or are they considered veterans?
Most of those guys will be in the morning group.
And you talked in the spring about your secondary being light years away. Where is it heading into preseason camp?
Well, we hadn't practiced yet, so we're still there.
Dave.
Will, when you look at setting up your offensive scheme, what you want to do? Is it about instituting what you want to do now for long term, or is it kind of taking what you can get with this group?
Well, I always think whether it's on offense or defense is do what your players can do. I think the worst thing you can do is say, here's our scheme, and this is what we are, and it may not fit exactly what your players can do. When we went to the Dolphins at LSU, we were a middle field man pressure team. We could cover, we could rush, and that's who we were. And we went to the Miami Dolphins. We were a little older in the secondary, and we played more split safety than I've probably ever played in my life from the standpoint of what our players could do. So it's not about, what you know as a coach and what your scheme and what you think your players can do. It's about what can they do. And I think that's something in camp, especially with some younger players on both sides of the ball. We're going to have to make some decisions early about what exactly we can do. And that's something that we've, really challenged the staff as far as finding out what's best for our players. Because, again, it's not about our scheme. It's about how we do it as much as what we do.
Will, you talked about taking care of this state first, and I wonder how that's gone for you since you were hired and you got your staff together, going around the state and seeing the high school coaches.
I think we've been very well received. We've had a great turnout at our coaches clinic, a great turnout every week of coaches coming to our campus to meet with our staff. So I feel very good about where we are, but that's an everyday process. That's just who you are.
And then as far as recruiting and even going after preferred walk-ons and stuff, are you willing to err slightly on optimism on a South Carolina kid versus an out-of-state kid if it comes down to?
Well, I don't want to err at all.
Well, if it comes down to equal, or you're bending over backwards to establish yourself here? Or
No, I wouldn't say that. I say that the players that we feel like can be successful in the Southeastern Conference are the players we're going after, whether they're in South Carolina or not.
John, back to the right side.
Spring, you missed out on guys like Shamik Blackshear, Dante Sawyer, Jordan Diggs. What do you expect from them out of the gate, and then what they can provide for the rest of the season?
Well, all those guys, the three that you mentioned, all had good summers. I mean, they worked hard. They looked to be in good condition. We'll find out as we move through camp here. But, they've done a good job off the field studying schematically the things we do, and certainly expecting all three to contribute.
Let's go to Pete here, and then Phil in the middle. Pete.
Will, you talked about the young guys having a good work ethic. You talked about what about some of the older guys who maybe don't have as much time to turn things around? What have you found these 9 months from them? How willing are they to kind of put the work in and really turn this program around?
Well, I think overall the work ethic's been really good. It's not just been the young guys. It's been all the guys. And I think sometimes when you deal with a younger team, especially on the offensive side of the ball right now, we got 3 seniors. Mason, Zandy, Darius, Paulk, and Perry Orth. So we got 3 guys that are seniors. The majority of our guys are freshmen and sophomores. So, but again, the buy-in's been really good. Kelsey Griffin. I mean, I just think in terms of seniors, Quay Lewis, all those guys are working extremely hard. We've had very little resistance about the things we're trying to do, and I credit the previous staff as far as that's concerned. We had a good culture here when we got here.
Go to Phil in the middle.
The night before Michigan plays its season opener at home, they're hosting a high school football game featuring a school where it's recruiting a couple of big-time players. How do you feel about that, and is that something that other schools are going to start looking to do when it comes to recruiting?
You'd have to ask Coach Tanner, about that. But personally, we play on grass here because we have really good weather 12 months out of the year. They don't have good weather 12 months out of the year. So they play on turf, so it doesn't affect the field. So I wouldn't want to play after a team had played on our field on Friday night. But we have the state championship games here at Williams-Brice, and I think that's a huge benefit for us.
Middle room, Derek.
Coach, you mentioned Mason Zandy. I just wondered how neat it is to have a senior leader like him anchoring your line, and how do you feel his transfer will be from right tackle to left tackle?
Well, I thought he had a really good spring. But he's one of the guys that I would point to say that's from made it very easy for us as coaches from a transition standpoint. But really smart guy, really good athlete. Obviously has the length and the size and the physical attributes you're looking for at the position, and a guy that we're counting on having a really good year this year.
Back to David in front.
Will, a couple of questions on a freshman not talking to us. One, what's the reasoning for that? And 2, will that last throughout the season?
Well, it could change, but I think as much as anything, David, I just want to educate our guys a little bit because a lot of these guys, obviously, with some of the stories your papers run, don't always know how to handle questions the right way. And I think it's important for them to understand that it's not just about them and where they're from and their family. They're now representing the University of South Carolina. So we have some things in place in camp to help them handle the media, and I think that's really important.
Go to Hale here. Turn around, Hale. Get the microphone.
How's Perry handled, I guess, the dynamic of having a couple younger guys coming in and trying to take a job that he's fighting for as well?
Well, I mean, I think that, Perry's been great. I mean, he's worked extremely hard. I think he has all the intangibles for the position to be successful. He positively affects everybody around him, including the 2 young players that are really talented players. But at the end of the day, it's not really about what class you are. It's about how good a football player are you, and can you help us win? And Perry understands that.
You mentioned Shamik Blackshear. Is he 100% recovered from his injuries from last December? Or exactly where does he stand right now?
He's fully cleared.
Let's go to Matt in the middle.
Is Terry Goodger a guy you feel like maybe behind Debo can kind of step up and be a playmaker at receiver for you guys?
Well, we need whether it's Terry or anyone else to step up at the position. Really having only one guy that's got playmaking ability that has displayed that on game day. I'm not saying the other guys can't do it. I'm just saying we haven't seen anybody do it on game day other than Debo. He needs to stay healthy, but having Terry step up, or Jamari, or Brian Edwards, or whoever it is at that position, we need more help. That's for sure.
Coach, you got here in December. Brandon McElwain got here in January. Can you talk about just the progress that he's made since you showed up until now, or since he showed up until now?
Well, again, at that position, there's a lot that goes into it. Being the quarterback at South Carolina, and a guy that's come in and really, was playing baseball and football. We had our workouts at 6 a.m. in the morning, and then he would go with Chad and them in the afternoon, and still maintain above a 3.0 GPA. So that's number one. Is a lot going on in a young man's life. So I think he made the transition very smooth. But a lot of times that transition goes back to maturity, and playing as a freshman, whether you come mid-year or whatever position you're playing, certainly quarterback being the hardest of all of them. A lot of it goes back to being mature and being away from home for the first time, and handling a new situation, a new staff, a new coaching, a new verbiage, all of the different things that go into it. And I feel like that he's handled those things extremely well. I thought he progressed from practice 1 to practice 15 extremely well. I thought he went out in front of 40,000 people in our stadium and handled the moment extremely well. And I think, again, by all reports, he's had a very good summer. So I'm looking forward to getting on the field with him in August.
Back here to the left.
How big of a jump can a player make from the end of spring to now, and how much of a sense of any jump can you get before getting him out on the field in the coming days?
Well, you can't simulate game day, and you can't simulate national TV and playing the Southeastern Conference. We'll try to as best we can as far as those things are concerned. But I've seen guys make tremendous strides from the end of spring to fall camp, whether it's from a conditioning standpoint, from a mental standpoint of learning the scheme of the system a little bit better. But I've seen guys make tremendous strides, and hopefully several of our guys have. We need them to.
Back to the right, John Whittle.
It sounds like you've got 4 quarterbacks that you want to take a look at early in camp. Do you split those reps pretty evenly at quarterback, and is there a time when you need to kind of narrow the competition down as far as getting 1 or 2 guys more reps?
Well, we will obviously, I think after the first scrimmage, need to narrow that down a little bit, and that'll be on I believe it's the 13th on Saturday. So whatever that second Saturday is, we'll have a scrimmage that morning. But I think after that, you probably need to narrow it down to 2 guys and kind of go from there, and obviously still try and get the other guys some reps.
As you'll likely be counting on a lot of true freshmen in various positions. And you said maturity is a big part of that, but in your many years in this league, a guy in his first year out of high school trying to play in this league, is there one specific thing or 2 things that, in terms of hurdles, that you notice always a freshman seems to run into in this league playing for the first time?
Well, the number one thing, the further your position is away from the ball, the easier it is to play. Over my last 2 stops, we've had 9 defensive backs start as true freshmen. But a lot of times when the further your position is away from the ball, you have more time for your athleticism to take over. It's easier to play receiver. It's easier to play DB as a freshman. I'm not saying we've had DJ Humphrey started for me at left tackle as a freshman. So that's happened before. Maturity, but generally in most freshmen, it's fine when it's just football. Then all of a sudden you mix football and school and study hall, and we're going to check those. Our guys go to class here. So, I mean, those are things that you start adding on all the variables, and all of a sudden a social life happens, and eventually they sometimes hit the wall here and there. And it's just a matter of when it's going to happen. It's not if, it's when with most guys. So those are things as an experienced coach are going to happen. You can sort of see the signs when they're coming, and just make sure that our priorities are all in order and what we need to do to be successful.
Will, a little off topic, but you guys have shared a lot of pictures of different helmets, different uniforms. How many uniform combos will you have, and how will you choose what you wear per game?
Well, the seniors will make that decision, and I hadn't really sat down with them and talked about it yet. We need to have a good camp. We're not worried about the uniforms right now. I got a lot on my mind, and that isn't one of them.
Back to Phil in the middle.
2-part question. Jamarcus King, what are you expecting out of him? How early an impact could he have? And can you shed some light on J.C. Jackson and what happened with him and why he ended up not coming to South Carolina?
Sure. Jamarcus, was a guy that obviously we recruited at Auburn and a guy that came to our camp and was, I think as important as anything. The quarterback position is extremely hard to evaluate on film. And the defensive back position is extremely hard to evaluate on film. A lot of times they're not even in the screen, and you're trying to locate a guy. So here's a guy that we had in camp, and we really liked his athleticism, his movement skills, his top-end speed, his finish down the field. He's got really good ball skills. He can finish on plays down the field, and has really good tape as well. Extremely bright young man. As I told him in the recruiting process, I make no promises in recruiting. All I'm going to do is promise you an opportunity. It's your job to go take advantage of the opportunity in front of you. So he needs to go take advantage of the opportunities he's going to have, and he'll have them. And, I think athletically he'll fit in very well. On the other situation, I'll comment on the guys on our football team, and those that aren't on our team, I don't have any comment.
Coach, how big of a loss is Sky Moore, and how do you make up for losing a leader like that on your defense?
Well, he's a true freshman starter. He's led the team in tackles for 3 years. He's obviously a playmaker and a very well-respected teammate, extremely good athlete. So it's a huge loss for us. But, man down, man up. We need somebody else to step up in his absence. Unfortunate for us and him, but certainly have some guys that I think are talented to take that role.
Coach, you already asked about Mason Zandy, but you're turning a lot of other guys on the offensive line and your offensive line coach. Just how important is that group going to be for this offense this season?
Well, I think offensively we were far ahead of the defense in the spring a lot because of having Sean back, obviously, which he does an outstanding job, having 34 starts back on our offensive line, but a position that's been recruited well and developed well. And that's part of this game. Football's a developmental game. And you got to develop your positions, and you got to coach your guys and develop your guys, and that's the best developed position on our football team right now. We've kept a lot of verbiage the same for them to be able to have the continuity moving forward. So I think that there's a lot of continuity in that position. There's some ability in that position, and there's development in that position.
You mentioned you're an experienced coach, but you've only had one other team, at least in the SEC, with your name at the top going into preseason camp. How do your emotions compare to that, or your mindset compare heading into practice number one?
Well, I don't know that previous stops, other than just, leaning on experiences you've had before, whether they be positive or negative, affect anything. This is the University of South Carolina. I'm excited to be here. We've hired an outstanding staff, and I really like the buy-in and the work ethic of our players. We're looking forward to coaching them tomorrow.
Will, you mentioned Evan Henson. At least he said that he wants to come in and maybe play basketball too. Have you talked with Frank about that?
We Frank, he was gonna do some work for Frank. I don't know their exact rules, but I know they can get on with him at the court in different spots and of the year. And that's when he had the meniscus. He had the scope there, and we were unable to get him over there for that and the rehab of that. But certainly when the season's over. Something he wants to do. We've talked about that in the recruiting process, and Frank's been great.
What are your thoughts on the new social media rules that started today and how that might change things in recruiting, if at all?
I retweeted some today. It was nice. I hope I didn't do the wrong one. I'll be honest with you. I've messed up on that stuff too. But I don't know if it's going to change it. I hope somebody's not going to choose us because I retweeted something. Seriously. So, but it's it is what it is. You just got to continue to figure out how to do all that stuff. It's kind of been a little more difficult than I thought at times.
You guys used Bryson Allen Williams in a lot of different spots during the spring. Do you plan on continuing to do that, and where do you think he can most help you?
Well, he helps us when he's on the field. He's a good football player. He's a productive guy. He's a bright young man. He plays the game fast. He's got really good natural instincts off the ball, but he's also got pass rush ability. So I think the biggest challenge for us defensively, and I told our defensive staff today, was let's make sure we don't ask too much. Let's make sure we keep him playing fast and not thinking and let him react and play the game because he's got some natural instincts to play extremely well at a high level.
Coach, obviously one of the positions you got to look for a new starter is tight end. Talk about, who's
who's got the inside track maybe for that position. What somebody like a Jacob August has can contribute to that position.
Well, two guys that are extremely talented at the positions, Hayden Hurst and KC Crosby. And they're very hard guys for what I would say for a defense to count. Are they a tight end? Are they a C area player? Are they a flex guy? Are they an off-the-ball guy? Jake August obviously fits into that category as well. I think Kyle Markway is going to be a good tight end for us. And the two young guys, Evan Henson and Robert Tucker, are two good athletes. And how quickly they'll learn. That's a difficult position to learn because you got to know a lot about the run game as far as the assignments are concerned in the run game, and you also got to know the pass game and the protections. You know, if you look at the receiver position, they're not worried about protection. They're worried about running around and blocking hopefully the right guy. So in the run game. So, you know, there's a lot to learn at that position, and I feel like we've got some ability at the position.
Coach, what are you doing differently than Coach Spurrier's staff? What are some of the changes that you've made in practice and in routine that's a little different maybe for these veterans to have to do differently?
Well, I wasn't here, so it wouldn't be fair to me to say what we're doing different. I just know what we're doing.
Well, what's your philosophy on special teams? Do you like a lot of starters on there?
Best
the best
players
guys?
play. It's 1/3 of the game. It's a chance to control the vertical field position of the game. We don't have enough team speed for our best players not to play. So best players play. It's a chance to change the momentum of a game. Our guys understand my philosophy is what I learned from Bill Parcells. And if you're not a quarterback, you're not an offensive lineman, you don't play special teams, you're a selfish player. We just had a team meeting, and selfish players will not be tolerated in our organization. So they're going to play special teams. And if, you know, the NFL is a 53-man roster, they're 45 active on game day. If they're not the top guy at their position, they're playing special teams. It's the only way they can stay in the league. So they'll understand the importance of special teams.
Will, how fluid is the right side of that offensive line, and what did you like from Helms and Park in the spring that put him there in first team right now?
Well, it's all fluid. I mean, that's why we didn't have a depth chart today. You didn't give him a depth chart, did you? So you got to watch this guy some days. I don't know what he's going to do. But, you know, Corey can play center. He can play guard. DJ can play inside. He can play tackle. DJ's extremely talented. You know, he's got to learn to just to you know, build through and play hard all the time. You know, that's something that young players, especially bigger young players, sometimes struggle with. But he's extremely talented, and he's had a really good summer. So I'm really proud of him. But those two guys are good football players, but he can also play. Corey can also play center. Donnell Stanley can play both guard positions and center, and Zach Bailey can play all 5 spots. So we've got some flexibility, and to be able to have that many guys that can snap, which is obviously important for you.
Coach, I know you got a long way to go in camp, but looking forward, when do you start game planning for Vanderbilt? When do you start putting in that system?
Well, you know, we'll have the first scrimmage, which I believe is on the 13th, and then we'll have another week there. We start school on the 18th, I believe, and then we'll have another scrimmage the 20th there in the stadium, which will be much like try and simulate as much as game day as we can. We'll have a pregame meal, you know, that day. We'll have a Friday night meal just like we're going to have before we go to Vanderbilt and those sort of things. So we try and simulate with a young team as much as we can the game day atmosphere. But then as we start moving into the next week, when we've done we've looked at all 12 opponents on offense, defense, and special teams, you know, that Monday and Tuesday of the next week, we'll start, you know, looking at some things that maybe we didn't see in camp from our offense, or some looks our defense doesn't give us, or some looks maybe in special teams that we haven't gone over. And then we'll have about six to 8 good practices that's solely focused on Vanderbilt. With a young team, we need to get as much exposure to them as possible, and that may be more than we've done before.
What kind of an impression did you get of DJ Smith in his kind of limited spring, and what kind of spots do you sort of want to try him out at?
Yeah, DJ would play safety for us. I think he could be an emergency corner. He's got some coverage ability on the outside if we had to. But you know, again, very intelligent. I think just, you know, the biggest things I've challenged DJ going into camp is just consistency in his performance every single day. You know, it's one mistake back there is not good. So just the consistency of that, communication skills. But he's got some ability, and we just got to get the consistency of his performances down. Mm-hmm.
Openers are always unpredictable in nature, but how big is this opener for you, the first game of your tenure at South Carolina, to kind of establish the tone of the program for everybody else to see?
Well, I mean, again, we're in it for the long haul, and at the end of the day, I'm worried about camp right now. I mean, my sole focus is on that. You know, we didn't discuss with our team anything other than the things we need to do to be successful in the season. We need to implement right now. This season started January 11th, when we had our first team meeting. We had a great off season. It leads into spring ball. It leads into the summer program. It leads now into where we are now, is playing the game of football, which is what they like to do. So we've trained to this point. Let's just take care of this right now, and that's my sole focus for this football team.
Any other questions for Coach? We got one here in front.
Coach, got a question about special teams. You return fish, obviously, at kicking position. Are there any available options for a player like Joseph Charlton to maybe emerge and get some playing time?
Well, I hope Joseph can be our kickoff guy. You know, I'd really like for that to happen. I think it's sometimes hard when your place kicker is your kickoff guy, and sometimes he strains something. I've had that happen before in a game situation. That's never good. So hopefully he'll win that job, and he certainly has the leg for it. Just needs to be consistently, well kicking the ball and placing it, because the ball placement is so important on all the kickoffs.
Anything else? All right.
All right, thank you.
See all
Appreciate it.
upstairs and then Cruz Bill.
All right.
What's that? One thing I wanted to ask you, expectations.